Blaze Media national correspondent has been in Tampa for the last couple of days reporting on the worst of Hurricane Milton, and he joins us now during Skype. It's Julio Rosas. Everybody knows what Julio has been just in the middle of all of these hurricanes. So what have you been doing in Tampa, Julio?
So today, I was with the Florida Fish and Wildlife officers. We had a swamp buggy, which is what they use to go across swamps. It's basically a high water vehicle, and we were stationed in Seminole, Florida, which is just south of Clearwater, north of St. Petersburg. And so, because Hurricane Milton, thankfully for the Tampa Bay area, didn't actually go into Tampa Bay. It hit, made landfall just south of that. The expected storm surge for Tampa Bay didn't materialize. That's not to say that this wasn't a powerful hurricane. That doesn't say that there was extensive damage, and there was. And this morning we used that swamp buggy to evacuate dozens of residents out of a flooded apartment complex. And altogether, I mean, this was the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, the Clearwater Police and Fire Department, and FWC. They, over the course of around 5 hours, they evacuated 450 people out of that apartment complex. And that was unique because it wasn't in a mandatory evacuation zone. When Hurricane Helene passed through the area, they did not experience any flooding back then. So I think that's why a lot of people thought that they were fine and secure. But every storm is different, and clearly the flooding was quite different for that area specifically. And a lot of kids were taken out, a lot of pets as well. And that was one of the few major rescue operations that were needed in Pinellas County.
That's amazing, and that footage that we just saw is from your trip, right? We're going to be
yes, that's correct.
If that you can find that online soon, if you can already, right? If it's not already out, right? So tell us a little bit about last night, though, because where were you actually when it hit? Were you in the thick of it, or were you a little bit removed?
No, we were. So Seminole, the city of Seminole is on the peninsula of Tampa Bay. So again, we didn't get. We were hit when Hurricane Milton made landfall, but it wasn't. It was north of the eye wall, and so typically as these things go, the north of the eye wall is what's going to bring the winds, but the rain. It's the southern portion of the storm which draws the water into land. So because it hit Sarasota County, which is just south of Tampa Bay, a lot of the storm surge came and it hit Venice, Sarasota, the Keys over there. And so the wind was very, very strong. I mean, when I was with the FWC officers, we were taking shelter at a local fire station in Seminole, and you just open the door and it was raining sideways. I mean, that's how fast the storm was coming. And interestingly, Milton came a lot earlier than expected. The day before, they were expecting around 2 a.m. And then the morning of landfall, they said, well, actually 12 a.m. And as we're getting closer and closer, the hours kept going down, and it made landfall around 8:39 p.m., which was kind of the height of it. And so we, because this was a staging area for local first responders, we didn't lose power. The light was flickering on and off every now and again, but we did end up losing Wi-Fi. Cell service was non-existent for me personally until around 12:30, 11:30 a.m. Today. And so again, even though this wasn't the worst case scenario for the Tampa Bay area, it was obviously a very, very powerful storm, and it was interesting seeing there were still people driving at 8 p.m. Not too many, but we were kind of thinking, first responders aren't really allowed to be out there when the winds are over 50 miles per hour. And so at that point, it was like close to 100. So you're just having to think, where are they going? And hopefully wherever they're going, they're getting somewhere safe. But I mean, that's what happens in storms.
This is where they would say online, the Florida man is still going to be the Florida man. But I'm curious, of all the people that you talked to, you said there were 450 people that were evacuated. Those people or anybody else, thankfully, it was not a Category 5 storm like it had been when it was still in the Gulf of Mexico. It was only a Category 3 when it actually made landfall. But what were the people that you were talking with? What were they saying? What was the feeling after it went through?
Well, for that apartment complex, they were shocked. And it's like I said, it's because they thought that they were safe given what happened with Helene, and there was nothing major that happened to them. And just the fact that, like I said, they were in an evacuation zone. And so the reason why there weren't really any fatalities that I'm aware of is because the water came in gradually. It wasn't like a flash flood, kind of like what we saw in North Carolina or some of the other places. And so people were able to either leave the buildings, or they were able to go to the second floor to their neighbors up there. And so it was just a shock. They were obviously very thankful that we that we came up in this high water vehicle to take them out and take their pets with them. But they were just obviously frustrated because this is because all the cars in the parking lot were flooded. I mean, I think only at the very outer edge of the parking lot by the main road where it was like that one area that wasn't flooded. So virtually all the cars were flooded. First floor, I mean, the highest depth that I'm aware of was probably about 8 feet. So all the first floor units were, they're going to have to be totally gutted out and changed and remodeled. So it's just, it was just a very shocking time for them. But obviously they were grateful that they were being carried away from there from the time being.
We've been in a few hurricane zones lately. Talk to us a little bit. Give us a little compare and contrast of the differences, if any, in response and what you've experienced being in both areas.
Yeah, I mean, so I would say, I mean, and obviously it's to a certain extent, but Florida is a little bit easier to respond to hurricanes as opposed to North Carolina, just because Florida's flat, right? So that you can access those areas that need help either by air or by boat or by a swamp buggy. But North Carolina, the reason why it's been so hard for people to get the help that they need is because there's only one road to their town or to their house, and when miles of it is gone because it got washed out, that's obviously going to take a long time for things to go back to normal. And that's not to say that for this area experiencing hurricanes back to back, I'm not saying it's going to just be super easy to get over. No, but there is an advantage when Florida has competent leadership. Number one. They have experience dealing with this for as long as Florida has been a thing, but also just the fact that there are multiple modes of transportation that first responders and helpers and supply deliveries are able to use, as opposed to North Carolina, where it's either by helicopter or it's on foot, which takes a long time. So that's the advantage that Florida has. Again, that's not to say that every hurricane, therefore, is easy. I mean, there were still miles. There were still miles of debris from Hurricane Helene that hadn't been picked up when Milton made landfall, and obviously the state did everything it could to get as much of it off the street and into dumps as fast as possible. But there was just no way that they were going to be able to take all that within 8 days, right? So it's we'll see what happens in the Atlantic Ocean. We'll see what happens in the tropics because hurricane season is not over yet. I mean, we still got a little bit less than a month left of it, and there's still some systems that could in the next couple of weeks produce something. That's not to say it's a hurricane, but that just shows getting hit back to back is not obviously a good thing, and not something that Florida wants to go through. But there are ways to mitigate the worst case scenarios.